Ken Palm actually says they're one of the 10 or 15 least experienced teams in the country right now in college basketball. So for them to be 10-3, I feel like is a pretty good spot for them right now.
Yeah, no question. I think if you would have told most Louisville fans at the beginning of the year on January 25th they'd be 10-3, and they would have beat Kentucky, I think people would have said, "I'll take it right now." Just because there was so much unknown. I mean, if you think about it, really Malik and David were the only two returning players with any kind of experience for the most part. I know some of the other guys obviously were on the roster last year, but they didn't really play. And then you add in Carly, who's new. Now all of a sudden Malik gets hurt, and you got to rely on, Jalen. I probably didn't expect to play quite as much as he's been playing, and just some of the other guys. But nonetheless, I mean, they've had a very good season so far. There's no doubt about that. I know I can't remember who I was talking to about it. Said that their schedule coming up here over the next couple of weeks is pretty difficult, I think. Mm-hmm. So, obviously they'll get tested, but I think at this point in the season, for them to be where they are, I would assume that they're all pretty pleased with the way things have gone. And I know they had the back-to-back losses to Florida State, if anybody saw what they did to Clemson the other day, Florida State's the real deal again. But I know Duke is down, obviously, but still, it's Duke and it's a conference win. I don't care what league you're in, who's down, who's up, whatever the case may be. A conference win is a conference win. So, just that one game at a time mentality, I'm sure, is what they're taking, and it seems like they got back on track and have a chance to, put together a couple wins here maybe over the next couple weeks.
Yeah, they go. This has all just been refigured this morning and last night. So they go Wednesday at Clemson, I believe Monday at home against Georgia Tech, Wednesday at Syracuse, and then next Saturday, I believe, is at Virginia. So a little bit of a tough run with 3 games in 1 week. But great point. I'll say this. I was very excited. I even have my Pitt mug here that I'm drinking from. They had got off to such a great start, and then they lose to Wake Forest. And now Wake Forest, I think, is a program that, with Steve Forbes at the helm, will start being more of a factor in the ACC going forward. But still, you would think that a team that at this point is starting to hunt for an NCAA tournament bid would not lose to Wake Forest. But that's neither here nor there. That tells you how difficult the conference is. You mentioned Malik Williams and David Johnson, 2 guys who I would think on the roster you're the most familiar with, especially Malik Williams. How have you seen him progress? I know he hasn't had a chance to play this season, but the role he's taken on in the community with the program, he's the voice of the program, even if he's not playing, going from the high school kid that you guys looked at to being what he is now. How has he progressed and changed over the years?
Well, this is certainly an outsider's perspective because obviously I'm not around the program anymore, but mm-hmm. I think his maturity has come a long way. The year I had a chance to coach him, he was just a freshman coming out of high school, and obviously that's an adjustment for anybody. I don't care who you are. Even for Zion Williamson, it was probably an adjustment at some point just because it's a different game. But his maturity, I think he understood that he needed to become more of a leader. And from all accounts, from what I've been able to read and see and hear, it sounds like he has really embraced that role. And they've certainly missed him at times this year, just from a leadership standpoint on the court, but also just a physical presence. Malik has played 4 years of high major college basketball, and just that experience is not something you can teach. I know the guys who've had to step in and fill in for him have done a very good job, but there's just something about having been through the ringer for 4 years. And I'm not sure how his health is. Hopefully he gets a chance to return soon, but I know they are probably anxious for his arrival if he's able to come back this year. Just, it's another guy who's been around it and has just gone through it. So you can never put a price tag on experience.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and the other guy, David Johnson, I'm so curious for your perspective on this because you've been around so many Louisville guys who played in the Louisville program. And as someone who is not from Louisville but has made Louisville home, I think you probably have a pretty unique perspective on what that is like for local guys to be part of that program. What do you think they go through watching them, I know you've coached a couple of those guys. I can't remember the rosters that you were always on, but I assume there are at least a couple of guys from the area. But what do you think the challenges are for playing at a big time program like Louisville, where basketball is to the point where it's an obsession here, and guys who are already local know the pressure that's on Louisville basketball to succeed? What do you think that's like for those guys?
Well, I think from my experiences, I never had any of those guys encounter or say they felt like they had pressure on them. I think it was always, in my opinion, it was more of an excitement. I know with like Quentin was always really excited just to have a chance to be the point guard at Louisville. Ray grew up here obviously as well. It's just an excitement and it's a pride thing. Dwayne Sutton, another guy, and I'm sure David feels the same way. But even, you go all the way back to, I'm sure Griff, if you talk to Griff, he would probably say the same thing. I know Larry O'Bannon. It's a pride thing, and you grow up watching and emulating a program your entire life, and all of a sudden you become a part of it and a major part of it. And I think you just take a lot of pride in that. And, there's downsides to it, which each situation is different. But when you grow up somewhere, there's a chance for a lot more distractions. Now, I will say all the guys that I came across handled all that very well. I'm sure they had a bunch of different people in their ear, just local people putting, telling them certain things or whatever the case may be. But from what I always gathered, those guys always handled that really well. They kept their eye on the prize and on what they needed to do and stayed focused. But, it's very rare that you get a chance to not only play, but be one of the main parts of your hometown program. And, I think it's something that those guys really cherish. And it's been great to watch David. We recruited him very heavily at a high school, and I followed him very closely. Great family, just great people around him. And he's one of the nicest guys and nicest kids I ever had a chance to recruit. Just to watch him and how he's developed has been awesome. I think from a basketball standpoint this year, I think it was a little bit of an adjustment early on playing off the ball. He's a guy that had the ball in his hands all throughout high school and was used to playing the point guard. And, he's kind of had to learn how to relegate that a little bit with Carlik, but I think they've learned how to play with each other. And I think they're only going to continue to get better as the year goes on.
Yeah, he is the clear and away vote getter for the funniest guy on the team, if you ask any of his teammates, and has a real dry sense of humor, but he's very funny. And by all accounts, from every time I've interacted with him, just pretty even keeled, good dude. I think what's interesting about the Louisville kids and all the guys you mentioned, especially their parents or their, coaches who worked with them over the years, they're such an important buffer to the players for like the barber who has an opinion of who should be starting. And like, seriously, like it's fun. Yeah. It's hilarious, but it's also true. Their parents, especially the dads, who a lot of them have been coaches over the years themselves. But the moms too. They're having to absorb a lot from their cousins and their uncles and all these people who have opinions about the team that they're on in the city that they live in. I just feel like that's such an added element that's critically important to them surviving their college experience. Maybe they change their phone number or something once they get to school.